SEO versus AEO, GEO, what's the big differentiator in terms of creating content?
Okay, so we're talking about the user embedding layer. Okay, so in terms of the user embedding layer, that's where these tool companies are coming out with these studies that show based on different personas, you'll get entirely different sets of brands that are showing up for different questions. And so this is one of the places that we're really looking at when we go out to do synthetic prompt sort of creation. We're looking at injecting what our target personas like sort of facts would be, their age, their demographic, like where they live, what types of things they're interested in, actually putting those into synthetic prompts so that we can see what types of answers might differ there. And that's something we're not really doing in a traditional SEO sense. I think that's one of the sort of points of differentiation. We're really trying to better understand how creating really like persona first content, both on the e-commerce side of things as well as the informational side of things, can then map these very specific prompts. I'll give you an example of a prompt that got me thinking about this. So we did a study and we asked a bunch of people what their most recent prompt was. And somebody's prompt was, can you recommend skincare for me based on my age and skin type? And we're like, whoa. So like this person has already been having several conversations with ChatGPT about their skin and assumes Chat knows what their skin type is like off the top of their head, and also assumes it knows their age. And so like that's in the prompt, you're seeing the user leverage their own user embedding layer. And that's what's telling me as a marketer it's important to think about. So that's sort of it in a nutshell in terms of like one of the things that I think is really different is this user embedding layer, this concept of personalization and how much people rely on everything that Chat knows to surface them answers. That is something that we need to be thinking about. And I'm like, okay, mapping that to, well, what do we do on our site? One might argue, okay, well, this is stuff we were kind of doing for SEO anyway, John, right? I mean, to an extent, but I don't think we were this persona obsessed. Like it's arguable that this kind of brings it to another level where there's some interesting opportunities, and even within the Chat feed, the new like merchant feed for Chat, there's places that you can kind of tuck some of this information, maybe in the Q&A that could be leveraged in interesting ways. So I think there's some like differences when it comes to that. I think that the feed itself is one of them, in that like we have a completely separate feed for e-commerce that you can feed to ChatGPT, where you can directly give it information about your brand that directly influences answers. That's distinctly different than what we're doing in SEO. But I think, to be totally honest, right, outside of these things that kind of address the personalization component, a lot of the core components of what makes content show up are the same. What happens between Chat going out, doing retrieval, pulling back all these web answers, and then surfacing it into the answer, that's the black box that we're trying to better understand. And I think there's factors like freshness, there's factors like how complete your content is, there's factors like the fact that, Chat isn't reading the content as comprehensively as Google is. So like this whole concept of chunking might actually, like, there might be something to it in terms of like basically like semantic compression. Dan Petrovic posted a really cool tool, basically like demonstrating semantic compression. And so I think there's some interesting things there that, again, people could easily say, well, we did that for SEO too. But the reason that we're doing them is different, right? The reason that we're doing them and the expected output and what we're measuring against is a different landscape. And so like the dial, even if the dials are the same, the sort of like succession that we turn them and the way that they sort of articulate themselves in the sound that comes out of the organ or whatever, right, is different. So that's kind of where I think it's different.